The last words Callum Ryden ever said to me as his girlfriend weren't whispered. They were announced, loud enough for the cafe to go silent. Aurelia, you're too focused on your work, too committed, too serious. I'm bored and honestly, I'm done. I'm not interested anymore. He didn't even lower his voice. He just grabbed his coffee, smirked, and walked out, leaving me frozen in front of strangers who stared at me like I'd been slapped. The worst part, I still blamed myself that day. But years later, when I saw Callum again, cornered, exposed, and begging, he finally understood something he never expected. The woman he humiliated was the same woman who would dismantle his entire double life. My mornings always began with the soft crackle of cedar shavings beneath my boots and the gentle rustling of recovering animals stretching awake. Light filtered through the tall workshop windows in gold, honey-like rays, warming the wooden tables where half-finished wildlife sketches lay waiting. I breathed in the familiar scent, cedar dust, warm fur, and a hint of lavender from the diffuser Tessa insisted made the animals calmer. Honestly, it calmed me more than them. Tessa, my mentor and closest friend, always arrived before I did, already humming some old folk tune as she prepared the formula bottles. "You're early again," she teased without looking up. "One day you'll beat the sun itself." I laughed softly, stroking the back of a fox cub curled in a blanket. Routine keeps me sane. The world here was quiet, predictable, safe. Even when the animals cried or the workload grew heavy, it was a kind of heaviness grounded in purpose. I belonged here, among trembling paws, ink-stained fingers, and canvases that smelled of linseed oil and patience. Back then, I truly believed life couldn't shift beneath me. That peace like this stayed. That people who smiled at you meant it. That morning would always begin softly. I had no idea how quickly one person could turn quiet into chaos. I first met Callum Ryden on a rain-thick Wednesday afternoon when a storm had knocked out half the power in town. I'd taken refuge in a small art cafe, sketchbook open, trying to capture the wet shimmer on the sidewalk. He sat at the table next to mine, laptop open, glasses fogged from the downpour. He noticed me glancing up only because he accidentally knocked his water bottle to the floor. "Great first impression, right?" he said with a crooked smile. I laughed, picking it up for him. There was something disarming about his tone, gentle, warm, slightly embarrassed. We talked about the storm, then art, then animals, and somehow it felt like we were already in the middle of a conversation we'd started years ago. Before leaving, he asked if he could send me a voice note with a ridiculous thought he had about my sketch. I said yes. That night, his message arrived. "You draw like you're trying to hold the whole world still long enough to heal it. I don't know why, but that stuck with me." It was sweet, unexpectedly, intimate in a way that didn't feel invasive. I replayed it twice, then 3 times. It felt like the start of something slow and safe, and for a moment, it truly was. The next few weeks unfolded like a quiet romance written in pencil, soft, warm, and shaded with little surprises. Callum sent voice notes each morning, always sounding slightly sleepy, like he'd recorded them with his cheeks still on the pillow. "Good morning, Aurelia. Drink water today, and don't skip lunch like last time." He remembered everything I said, every detail. It felt rare. Sometimes he'd drop off pastries at the rehab center, always choosing flavors he claimed matched my energy. Other times he'd bring tiny jars of honey, because I once mentioned I used it in tea when painting at night. We sent sketches back and forth, mine of owls, foxes, and broken wings healing, his of cityscapes and silhouettes walking through rain. The slow burn attraction didn't feel forced. It wasn't a firework, it was a match warming my hands on a cold morning. Even Tessa noticed. "You're smiling more," she said one afternoon, narrowing her eyes knowingly. "Is that Storm Cafe boy the reason?" I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't hide it. Something about him felt balanced. Like he saw me, not the quiet girl who worked too much, but someone worth paying attention to. Looking back, I realized that's exactly how manipulation begins. Not with violence, but with gentleness so warm you don't notice the temperature rising. The first warning came from Tessa, though she delivered it gently, like she always did. She'd caught the tail end of one of Callum's late-night calls, the one where he teased me for choosing animals over a social life. "He's joking," I whispered. Tessa folded a blanket over a rescued fawn and raised a brow. "I'm sure he is, but do you feel good when he says things like that?" I brushed it off. "He's just playful." "And I'm not saying he isn't." She set the blanket down, her expression softening. "Just trust your intuition. You feel things deeply. If something ever feels off, don't smooth it over." I promised I would, but I didn't keep that promise. Because the next day, Callum showed up with warm cinnamon rolls and an apology for teasing me. "You know I admire what you do," he said, pressing a kiss to my temple. "You're dedicated, it's beautiful." His charm always arrived right on time, perfectly calibrated. Like he sensed the exact moment a doubt might bloom and crushed it gently under something sweet. At the time, I mistook that for emotional awareness, for attentiveness, for compatibility. But now, with distance and clarity, I know it was something else entirely. Control disguised as affection. The first real crack appeared one Friday evening when he canceled our plans an hour before dinner. His excuse: work emergency. Except when he answered my follow-up call, I heard music in the background. Loud music, laughter, voices. "Oh," he said, fumbling with the phone. "Yeah, sorry. The work thing is at a coworker's place. Team bonding." My stomach tightened. He'd told me his office was closed on Fridays. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Of course," he replied quickly, too quickly. "You're not being clingy, are you? I said I'll make it up to you." Clingy, that word sat in my chest like a stone. Later that night, he sent a long message apologizing for snapping. He said he was stressed and didn't want to take it out on me. He ended it with, "You're the calm in my chaos, Aurelia." It was the perfect line. Soft, flattering, disarming. And it worked, because I wanted to believe him. I wanted the gentle man from the cafe, not this inconsistent stranger who kept slipping through his own stories. So I forgave him, easily. Not knowing forgiveness would soon become a habit I repeated until it broke me. Callum had a talent. He could compliment me while planting a seed of insecurity so subtle I didn't feel it growing. He'd visit my workshop, run his fingers over my sketches, and say, "You're brilliant, but you could do more if you weren't stuck in this little place all the time." Or, "Your dedication is attractive. I just don't want it to consume you." Consume me. My work saved lives, tiny ones, quiet ones, but real lives. Yet somehow he made me question myself. One afternoon, I showed him a painting of a hawk I'd been working on for weeks. He stared at it, nodded slowly, then said, "It's good, but don't you ever want your art to be more than animals, more than this?" This meant my livelihood, my calling, my sanctuary. Tessa overheard him and gave me a look, a silent, heavy look that said something was wrong. But Callum kissed my forehead and whispered, "I just want the world to see you the way I do." And that was enough to make me doubt my own certainty. Looking back, I realized those weren't compliments. They were leashes, made of soft words so I wouldn't notice their tightness. It happened gradually, so gradually I didn't recognize the shift. Callum began calling me during work hours just to check in, then sounding hurt when I didn't answer. He'd frame it sweetly. "I miss your voice. I just needed to hear you. Is it so bad that I want your attention?" At first, it felt romantic, then restrictive. He'd show mild disappointment when I chose extra rehab hours over meeting him. "You're always tired," he'd sigh. "I feel like I'm dadding your schedule." Little comments, small sighs, a quiet erosion of my confidence, but always followed by something tender. "You know you're the only calm I have. You ground me. You're my safe place." One night, after I mentioned staying late to care for a weak hawk, he replied, "I love that you're dedicated. Truly. But sometimes it feels like you'd pick animals over me." He said it with a laugh, but his eyes didn't laugh with him. That was the first time my stomach dropped, a small internal tug, a whisper saying something isn't right. I ignored it. Because ignoring intuition is easier than accepting that someone you care for is slowly rearranging your world, in ways you can't yet see. The excuses multiplied, quietly at first, then with a frequency that made my chest ache. Callum started canceling plans minutes before we met, always with some dramatic explanation. His boss needed him. His mother suddenly called. His bank froze his account. His car acted weird. Every reason felt like a pebble thrown into my calm life, rippling outward until I couldn't recognize my own sense of balance anymore. One evening, after I spent hours preparing dinner, he texted. Something came up. Rain check. No apology, no explanation. I stared at the candles I'd lit, the soup simmering on the stove, the table I'd set with quiet excitement. The shame hit me hard, shame for caring, shame for hopping. When I confronted him, he sighed heavily, as if I was the one burdening him. Aurelia, you know my life is complicated. Why can't you just trust me? Most girlfriends would. Most girlfriends, the word stung. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the conversations, the inconsistencies, the rushed calls, the abrupt hang-ups. The red flags were beginning to glow bright, but he always found a way to dim them with a soft voice, an unexpected gesture, a perfectly timed message. Manipulation doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. The humiliation happened in a small cafe with yellow walls and mismatched chairs, the kind of place that felt too soft for cruelty. I arrived early, excited. He arrived late, irritated. Before I could greet him, he waved his hand dismissively. "We need to talk," he said loudly. My heart sank. "Okay, what's wrong?" He leaned back, crossing his arms. "Aurelia, you're too focused on your work, too obsessed, too committed. It's unattractive. I can't keep doing this." The cafe was still. Forks paused midair. A couple at the next table exchanged glances. My cheeks burned. "Callum, why are you saying this here?" "Why not?" He shrugged casually. "You don't have time for me. You're married to those animals. I'm bored. And honestly, I'm done. I'm not interested anymore." A punch to the ribs would have hurt less. People were watching. He stood up, grabbed his coffee, and added under his breath, "Find someone who likes being ignored." Then he walked out, just like that. I sat there, frozen, unable to breathe, the humiliation pressing down on my skin like smoke. Not one person knew what to say. Not one person moved. Tessa found me hours later, still sitting at the same table. I whispered, "Was he right?" She took my trembling hands. "No, he was cruel. Crueler than I yet understood." In the aftermath of the breakup, silence became my unwelcome companion. It followed me everywhere: the workshop, my kitchen, the quiet streets on my evening walks. Even the animals seemed gentler around me, sensing the crack in my chest. Tessa tried to fill the space with warm words and steady presence, but heartbreak has a way of echoing between the ribs no matter who stands beside you. I worked longer hours, partly to stay busy, partly to drown out my thoughts. The fox cubs needed feeding, the injured hawk needed bandage changes, the baby raccoon needed socializing. Their tiny, vulnerable lives gave me purpose when my own felt distorted. Friends told me I dodged a bullet. I nodded but didn't feel it. Because a part of me still replayed the breakup. His cold tone, the public humiliation, the way he made dedication sound like a flaw. Weeks passed and I tried to rebuild. I sketched again slowly, ate better, slept more, allowed myself to consider moving on. But then, one late evening, as I closed the workshop for the night, my phone buzzed. It was Callum. "Hey, I need a favor, it's urgent." My heart stopped. I should have ignored it. I didn't. And that single decision reopened a door I thought I had closed forever. Callum's message was frantic, sprinkled with typos and urgency. "Please, Aurelia, I'm stuck. Just a small amount. I'll pay you back tomorrow." I stared at my phone, torn between resentment and lingering softness. Against all logic, I called him. He sounded desperate. "My wallet got stolen, banks being stupid. I'm stranded." And then he added the sentence that cracked me. "You're the only person I can trust." It was manipulative, but I didn't recognize it yet. I just remembered the tenderness from months prior, the voice notes, the sketches he praised, the cinnamon rolls he brought. My chest tightened with a ghost of hope that maybe he wasn't as heartless as that cafe breakup made him seem. So I sent him money. It wasn't much, $40. He thanked me profusely and promised to repay immediately. He didn't. A week passed. No repayment, no apology, no call. Just another message. Hey, I know I still owe you. Something came up. I'll explain soon. Could you help again? Just this once. The just once became twice, then 3 times. Small amounts each time, $20, 50. Sometimes 10, just until midnight. Each request left me more uneasy, but I kept rationalizing it. He's having a hard time. He'll pay me back. This isn't who he is. But deep down, a small voice whispered, it is exactly who he is. His requests escalated like clockwork, never sudden, always incremental, like someone turning up the volume without you noticing until the walls shook. One night he called me at nearly midnight. Aurelia, please, it's an emergency. My account is frozen again. I rubbed my eyes. Why does this keep happening? Bank errors, my life is a disaster. He sighed dramatically. You're the only steady thing I have. He knew exactly which strings to pull. Stability, empathy, guilt. I asked for details, but he dodged them with emotional distractions. I'm embarrassed, okay? Can you just help me? He always sounded close to breaking, close to tears, close to something that made me soften despite myself. Every question I asked was met with a wounded tone, a subtle accusation. Why don't you trust me? Do you think I'm using you? Wow, I didn't expect you to doubt me. Guilt trip after guilt trip. And then came the contradiction. He texted me saying he couldn't afford gas while posting a story from a bar minutes later. When I confronted him, he claimed someone else had paid for everything. The excuses multiplied. My doubt grew, but each time I hesitated, he layered charm over the cracks like paint over mold. And I let myself believe it, because believing the worst felt too painful. By this point, Tessa no longer hid her concern. She noticed the tired circles under my eyes, the tension in my shoulders, the way I flinched every time my phone buzzed. One afternoon, after I accidentally dropped a feeding syringe from shaking hands, she gently took my wrist. Aurelia, something's wrong. I tried to smile. I'm fine. No, you're unraveling, and I need you to hear this. Someone who drains you isn't someone who loves you. Her words hit a place I had avoided acknowledging. Later, during a volunteer meeting, Jonah, our tech-savvy college helper, overheard me mention another financial emergency. He frowned. Are you sure he's not lying? My cousin went through something similar. The guy was double-dipping people like it was a business. I bristled. Callum isn't like that. But my voice lacked confidence. Tessa spoke softly behind me. Sweetheart, your intuition has been screaming for weeks. Why aren't you listening? Because listening meant admitting I had handed my heart and my trust to someone who didn't deserve a fraction of it. That night, alone in my apartment, I replayed every inconsistency, every guilt trip, every lingering doubt. A sickening truth twisted in my stomach. I was being used. But the worst part, I wasn't ready to face how deeply yet. The truth arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, the kind of morning that normally smelled of coffee and canvas. My phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. At first, I ignored it. Then another message came through. Hi, you don't know me, but you need to see this. It's about Callum. My pulse spiked. I hesitated, then opened the image attached. It was a screenshot, a message thread. Callum's name is clearly visible. And his words, sharp, mocking, stabbed through the screen. Aurelia, she's obsessed with animals and easy to manipulate, always willing to help. She's basically funding my life at this point. I stared, breath gone. Another screenshot arrived. Callum with a woman elegant, wealthy-looking, leaning into him like they were dating. The sender added, he told me you were his backup support. He's been lying to both of us. I thought he was different until I saw your name in his messages. My hands began to shake violently. Then came the final blow. I'm sorry, I had no idea. I thought you should know the truth. The world blurred. My ears rang. Every excuse he ever gave me, every manipulation, every guilt trip suddenly snapped into focus like a cruel, twisted mosaic. The man I trusted, the man who humiliated me, the man who said I was too focused, too committed, too serious, was living a double life and using me to fund it. My heartbreak turned into something sharper, something burning. I spent the rest of the morning sitting on the workshop floor, my back against a cabinet of paint jars, staring at the screenshots until my eyes blurred. Every message the woman sent was another cut. Callum promising her trips he couldn't afford, bragging about financial help from someone too soft to question anything. Someone. Me. My heart pounded so loud it felt like the walls vibrated. He had used me, not accidentally, not in a moment of weakness, but deliberately, strategically, like a resource, like a tool. I scrolled further. More screenshots, more proof, more evidence of private jokes made at my expense. My profession was mocked. My dedication is labeled pathetic. My kindness is described as easy to exploit. It felt like reading an autopsy of my own trust. At some point, I realized my hands had gone numb. Cesare, the injured hawk perched nearby, blinked at me with slow, steady patience, like he sensed something in me had cracked open. Tessa found me like that, her expression softening as soon as she saw the phone in my hand. "Oh, Aurelia." I couldn't speak, I couldn't cry yet. I simply handed her the screen. She read in silence, jaw tightening. When she finally looked at me, her voice was firm. "You're done being hurt," she said. "Now we protect you." Those words became the first spark in the ashes of my shame. The breakdown came later that night, long after the center had closed and the world had gone quiet. I sat at my kitchen table, still covered in unsorted sketches, while the screenshots glared back at me from my phone. Every insult replayed like an echo I couldn't escape. "You're easy to manipulate. She'll help if I guilt her. She's obsessed with those animals. She won't question anything." At first, I tried to stay still, to breathe. Then the tears hit without warning, loud, shaking sobs that folded me over the table. I cried until the wooden surface beneath my arms was slick. Cried for every ignored red flag, for every apology I made on his behalf, for every moment I believed I wasn't enough. Shame clawed through me. How did I let this happen? How did I not see it? Why wasn't I smarter? Why did I keep helping him? I opened my sketchbook, flipping through pages covered in inked feathers and careful shading. My art felt tainted. My kindness felt weaponized. My heart felt foolish. I wrote in the margin, hands trembling, "Never again." It wasn't a vow yet, just a whisper. But sometimes whispers are the beginning of revolutions. I fell asleep at the table, surrounded by the quiet evidence of a life I wasn't going to return to. The next morning, something in me felt different, not healed, not steady, but sharpened. Like grief had burned away the fog and left only clarity behind. I stood in front of the mirror, eyes swollen, hair tangled, and whispered aloud, "No more." For the first time in weeks, the words didn't tremble. I opened every message thread with Callum, scrolling through months of conversations I had once cherished. This time, I read with new eyes, the guilt traps, the emotional bait, the manipulative timing, the small tests of control, the subtle dismissals hidden in sweetness. Patterns emerged. His excuses followed rhythms. His guilt trips were formulas. His affection was currency. My stomach twisted, but anger steadied me. I created a new folder on my phone. Evidence! Screenshots, voice notes, bank transfers, call logs, contradictions, dates, times, every moment he pressured, coaxed, or manipulated. Piece by piece, his behavior stopped feeling personal and started looking calculated. Tessa came by after lunch, bringing soup I barely touched. When she saw the organized folder on my laptop, she placed her hand on my shoulder. "You're taking your power back," she said. I nodded. He took advantage of the wrong person. Not because I was vengeful, but because I finally understood my worth and his lack of it. 2 days later, Jonah joined me in the office after volunteering hours. I hesitated at first, unsure how much to share, but he spoke gently. "If he's manipulating you financially, emotional proof might not be enough. Documentation is key." So I opened everything. He listened quietly, face darkening as he clicked through the folder. Aurelia, this is more than manipulation. This is planned, repeated, possibly illegal. Hearing that out loud steadied me more than it frightened me. We built a timeline together. Message, transfer, excuse, repeat. We matched his lies to bank alerts. We saved voice notes where his tone flipped from sweet to guilt to pressure within seconds. Jonah showed me how to back up everything securely, just in case he tries to delete anything. He even found an old voicemail where Callum accidentally revealed he had money the same day he claimed he was broke. Evidence mounted like a rising tide. Tessa brought us tea, watching me with cautious pride. "You're not doing this out of anger," she said. "You're doing this out of clarity." I understood then. Revenge wasn't rage. It was truth brought into the light. By nightfall, the timeline was complete. Clean, clear, damning. Callum had built his web carefully, but I had just mapped every thread. Over the next few days, my small world gathered around me in ways I didn't expect. Tessa, Jonah, and even Marlowe, a retired wildlife officer who occasionally visited the center, formed a quiet circle of support. They didn't pressure me, didn't push. They simply stood close, ready. Marlowe reviewed the timeline Jonah and I created. His brows lifted. "This is patterned deception," he said calmly. "If he pressured you into providing money under false pretenses, that's serious." Hearing a professional say, it gave me a strange sense of validation, like I was finally allowed to stop blaming myself. Tessa squeezed my hand. "You don't have to face him alone." "I won't," I said, but a deeper certainty followed. I shouldn't face him as the same woman he walked over. I began practicing calm responses, rehearsing neutral tones. Jonah helped set up an app that would automatically record calls with proper legal settings. Marlowe explained what behavior to avoid so nothing could be twisted against me. Piece by piece, I rebuilt myself, not softer, not colder, but steadier. Then, as if on cue, Callum texted, "Hey, I need to talk. Something major happened." A perfect opening. Tessa read the message, her eyes narrowing. "Be careful." I wasn't afraid, not anymore. I replied with a short, neutral message. "Sure, when and where?" He chose a trendy cafe downtown, somewhere public, familiar, and loud enough to disguise uncomfortable truths. Perfect. I arrived early, phone set to record, posture calm, heart surprisingly steady. Jonah waited 2 blocks away, just in case. Callum walked in with rushed energy, scanning for me. When his eyes landed on mine, he smiled like nothing had ever happened. "Aurelia, you look great." I returned a soft, polite smile. "Thanks for meeting." He sat down, leaning forward with a rehearsed sigh. "I've been going through a lot. I didn't want to involve you, but everything's falling apart. My bank froze my account again. I'm in a tight spot." There it was, the familiar script. Manipulation dressed as vulnerability. "I just need a little help," he continued. "You've always been there for me, and I know you still care." I tilted my head. "How much do you need this time?" He blinked, caught off guard by my composure. Maybe a couple hundred, just until next week." I nodded slowly. "Interesting." His brows furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I slid my phone slightly closer, still recording. "Callum, are you sure that's the truth?" His face paled just slightly, a microsecond crack. And in that moment, he still believed he had control. He had no idea the ground beneath him was about to collapse. Callum's eyes darted, unsettled by my question. "What do you mean interesting?" he asked, voice tightening. I kept my expression neutral, calm, unthreatening. "Your emergencies always happen right when you need money. Doesn't that seem patterned?" He scoffed. "Aurelia, don't start. You're imagining things. I'm here because I chose to be honest with you." The lie landed so boldly I almost laughed. Instead, I leaned back. "So you didn't tell someone else that I'm easy to manipulate?" His face froze just for a flicker. "What?" His voice cracked. "And you didn't say, I'd always help you if you guilted me enough." He swallowed, hard. "Where is this coming from?" I let silence stretch, just long enough for him to panic. People around us sipped their drinks, unaware that his double life was unraveling one thread at a time. He leaned in, drops of sweat forming at his hairline. Aurelia, listen, you're overreacting. You always do this thing where you get emotional and… There it was, the old script, belittlement disguised as concern. I interrupted quietly. Callum, everything you say right now is being recorded. His breath hitched, his eyes widened, the blood drained from his cheeks. You're joking. I shook my head. For the first time, he realized he wasn't talking to the same woman he once humiliated, and fear finally entered his eyes. Callum tried to backpedal so fast he nearly tripped over his own pride. Aurelia, please delete that. I didn't mean anything I said. You're misunderstanding. You're twisting this. His voice shook. I stayed steady. Explain it then, every message, every lie. I was stressed. I didn't know how to ask for help. Help, I echoed, or money. His jaw clenched, then the mask slipped. You wouldn't understand. You never do. You're too busy with your little animals and sketchbooks. There it was, the real him, ugly, dismissive, unmasked. I pressed the record louder on purpose, so he heard the beep. His eyes widened again. Callum, I said softly, I'm not here for an apology. I'm here for the truth. And he gave it out of arrogance or fear, I don't know. He admitted to borrowing from multiple people, to lie to manage expectations, to give excuses because it worked, to maintain a second relationship because she had resources. He didn't realize he was confessing until it was too late. The avalanche had begun. Later that afternoon, I sent the entire recording, along with the timeline, to the woman who first contacted me, then his employer. Then the bank he claimed was freezing his account. Each time I hit send, another piece of his false world cracked. The fallout was fast, faster than I expected. The wealthy woman he'd been seeing responded first, her message trembling with fury. Thank you, I'm pressing charges. You weren't his only victim. Victim. The word felt heavy, but also clarifying. A day later, Callum's employer emailed me after reviewing the recordings. They had discovered he'd misused company funds, lied about expenses, and created fake emergencies to skip work. We've terminated his employment, they wrote. Your evidence was crucial. The next blow hit when Marlowe helped me forward the documentation to the investigative unit that handled financial deception cases. They took it seriously, more seriously than I expected. Within 72 hours, Callum's carefully constructed life began to crumble. He texted me repeatedly, please talk to me. You don't understand what you've done. Aurelia, please, I'm losing everything. I didn't reply. Tessa watched me nervously. Are you okay? I nodded. For the first time, yes. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like the truth was finally catching up to someone who had outrun it for too long. By the end of the week, he was exposed to everyone he had manipulated. And the last thing left was the moment our paths would cross again. The moment he would finally see who I'd become. I didn't expect to run into Callum in person. Fate handled that part for me. I was delivering a rehabilitated hawk to a partnering sanctuary. As I stepped out of my car, I spotted him across the parking lot, standing outside the building, disheveled, packing in frantic circles. His clothes wrinkled. His hair is unkempt. His eyes were red. He didn't notice me at first. Then he did. He froze mid-step like prey caught in a spotlight. Aurelia, he whispered. I lifted the carrier gently, calm and composed. Callum. He stumbled closer. Everything is falling apart. I lost my job. She left. The police, he swallowed, desperation trembling in his voice. You need to tell them it was a misunderstanding. You owe me that. Owe him. For a moment, the old version of me, the apologizer, the overgiver, almost surfaced. But she was gone. I don't owe you anything, I said softly. He blinked, stunned by my tone. You would ruin my life over mistakes. No, I replied. You ruined it yourself. I just stopped covering for you. He looked at me the same way he did the day he humiliated me in the cafe. Only now, he was the one standing in shame. And I felt nothing but peace. Life didn't snap back instantly, but it realigned gently, steadily, like a bone finally set right. The workshop felt warm again. Cedar shavings, sunlight stripes across tables, the soft murmur of animals waking. This place healed me the way I helped heal them. Tessa hovered with her calming presence. Jonah cracked jokes to make me smile, and Marlowe checked in to ensure I felt safe as the case progressed. I painted again, not to escape but to express. Wings unfurling, creatures recovering, broken things mending. Callum faded into background noise, important only as a lesson. One afternoon, I stood outside with Cessair, watching him take flight after months of rehabilitation. His wings beat strong, slicing the air with new strength. For the first time in a long while, I understood him. We both learned how to rise again. I whispered goodbye as he soared into the sky, sunlight catching on his feathers. That moment felt like closure, not dramatic, not explosive, just quiet and earned. I'd reclaimed my peace. I'd reclaimed myself, and I would never again apologize for being focused, committed, or serious, because those qualities didn't break me. They saved me. If my story reached you, hear this clearly. Your dedication is not a weakness. Your passion is not a burden. And anyone who tries to dim your light is terrified of what you'll look like when you finally shine at full strength. I thought I was too focused. But the truth, my focus helped me rebuild, recover, and rise higher than the person who tried to break me. If you're watching this, share it. Someone out there needs to be reminded that their strength is not the problem, it's their superpower. Like, share, and follow for stories that prove dedication is your greatest asset.